You are listening to another episode of the Coaster101 podcast. My name is Andrew Stillwell, and I am officially moved. That's why we've had been on a little bit of hiatus at the Coaster101 podcast, because sometimes you move, and unpacking a microphone and setting up an office and a space to make a podcast is it's a little easier said than done. But the good news is we are back with the Coaster101 podcast, and this week, flying solo once again. We're going to get back into a regular rotation here pretty soon, but I am here to talk about Busch Gardens Williamsburg's 10th roller coaster, DarKoaster. And if you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, especially, this past year or so, we've been talking a lot about DarKoaster and how it's replaced the Curse of Dark Castle dark ride at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Again, it gives the park that 10th coaster. I had the opportunity to go up right in the middle of May to the media day for DarKoaster, so the day before it opened. So we're, a little delayed at this point. But again, the magic of podcasting. I want to give a little bit about my thoughts on DarKoaster, and then on the back half of this episode, we are going to go into the interviews. We've got Park President Kevin Lemke. We've got Susie Cheeley from the park's design and engineering team. We've got Jeff Hornick, who was actually, believe it or not, my very first interview at Coaster101 all the way back in January of 2014 when he was at Busch Gardens Tampa. He's now he's on the corporate design and engineering team. He's the vice president. He's got a very long, fancy, and exciting title. And meanwhile, I am still writing and podcasting for Coaster101. So one of us is moving up in the industry, which is always good. And then we're also going to hear from our buddy Chris over at the Corkscrew Convos podcast. He was kind enough to interview me and have me on his show for a couple of minutes, and so I did the same for him. Then to kind of close the show, we are going to get a little bit of just on-ride audio. If you've seen the video on our YouTube channel, we did do an on-ride POV, but it's you can hear a little bit of what goes on inside King Ludwig's castle. But with DarKoaster, I feel like as it's being branded as North America's first ever all-indoor straddle coaster. It's got 4 launches. You traverse. It's about 1,500 feet of track, but you traverse 2,400 because there are 2 laps inside the building. I feel like it's well documented at this point. As far as the overall ride experience, again, the queue line is very similar to the former Curse of Dark Castle. And the story is, Count Ludwig, who is now King Ludwig, had this castle. It was abandoned. Right now, as you go into the queue as it stands today for DarKoaster, it looks like there's some paranormal investigating going on. It's several years since King/Count Ludwig's death. I can't remember the exact origin story. I think it's King. But you go into the queue and you board in a similar location to where you boarded for Dark Castle, and you go into the dark. You hit that first launch, and again, it's in 90 seconds. The ride's over, and you're at it again. It was my first time on one of these Intamin straddle coasters. Obviously, with the ride making its debut at SeaWorld San Antonio's Wavebreaker, the rescue coaster. This is definitely a much more indoor, tight, compact version. There's no water that you're going over, and they've themed the trains not necessarily as jet skis, but more of a snowmobile as you kind of go through the interior of this, formerly frozen snowy castle. The ride experience, very fun. This is not a coaster to me that is going to break any records, but it is a fun experience. It's got a top speed of 36 miles an hour, so you're slightly faster than you can drive in most residential neighborhoods in America. So it feels faster than 36 miles per hour, though, just because you're in the dark. You've got the cold air blowing right in your face. It's a different experience in pretty much any row you ride. If you ride in the front, you get the the unimpeded view of the darkness, but you get hit in the face with that wind and that cool air a lot more. In the back, obviously, you feel the forces. The train whips around. There's some good kind of laterals. It's no huge drops, no really sudden turns or anything like that. But in the middle, you get to see some of the show elements, and inside there are animatronics, there are some screens, there's some lighting effects, but it is disorienting in a good way. But I think, it has a maximum height requirement of 48 inches, which makes it a good coaster. I've been told by Adam Sandy any coaster with a 48-inch height requirement is not considered a family coaster, but I feel like at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, I feel like in DarKoaster kind of fills that gap a little bit. The coaster, that is for riders who are a little bit more advanced than Grover's Alpine Express, or even if you go over to Invader, I believe is a 40, it's a 46-inch height requirement, I think, for Invader. So, but after that, you have to jump up significantly. I feel like Verbolten would probably have been that next step, logical progression coaster. If you go check out the From Tame to Thrilling article on Busch Gardens Williamsburg that we have on Coaster101.com, you can go check that out. But I think that DarKoaster kind of fits right in the middle of that Invader and Verbolten at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. It's got the launches, but the launches are, there's no huge drops, but you just top out at 36 miles per hour, and I don't think you hit that until the fourth launch, which is actually just the second launch you've traversed for the second time. So this is a coaster, obviously, if you're afraid of the dark, it may not be for you. But for an overall ride experience, it does provide Busch Gardens Williamsburg kind of that gap coaster, or bridge coaster, however we want to define the term, between the kiddie coaster and the family wooden coaster. And don't get me wrong, I love Invader. It's one of my favorite coasters at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, just because of the punch it packs in such a small and unimposing footprint. But I think after Invader, you go to DarKoaster. And then you're ready for Verbolten, because you can handle the darkness, you can handle the launches, and then they throw a nice big drop towards the Rhine River at Verbolten on the end. So I think that's where kind of DarKoaster lies in the Busch Gardens coaster lineup. Obviously, again, they have 10 coasters now, and as you get up more towards the thrills of something like an Apollo's Chariot or a Griffin, or certainly Pantheon or Tempesto, DarKoaster is not that. It is a fun, thrilling coaster, perfect for families, and it is not a family coaster, Adam, if you're listening. But it is a good gap, and I think Busch Gardens, they've got a winner on their hands here, especially when the park hits these warm summer months. The AC was blasting inside that building, which to me was kind of a callback to how Curse of Dark Castle used to be the coolest place in the park temperature-wise, and if you were waiting inside that castle, you were getting blasted with air conditioning. And I will say the capacity, at least when we were riding, the train has 2 10-passenger trains, 5 rows, 2 passengers per row. So the capacity is not as, I wouldn't say it is the capacity you're looking for at a park like Busch Gardens. I mean, obviously, there's Tempesto. It only has 1 train, but it has 18 passengers in the train, and the ride cycle is like 40 seconds to a minute. Same with Dark Castle. Again, your ride cycle, you're looking about 90 seconds, but you only have 10 passengers a train. So if you're going to ride it, especially this summer, you might want to be prepared to wait. Maybe you can listen to this podcast in line. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But to learn a little bit more about Dark Castle, we're going to get into some interviews that I took on Media Day, recorded with, again, Park President Kevin Limke, Susie Cheeley, who is with the design and engineering with Busch Gardens Williamsburg, Jeff Hornick, who is he's with corporate design and engineering, and then our buddy Chris from Corkscrew Convos. And again, to wrap up the podcast, you are going to hear kind of an on-ride audio from our YouTube reverse POV. You'll get to hear kind of the whooshes and the turns and the on-ride audio that's you hear inside the building. You'll get to hear me react to some launches and things like that. But this is another one of those podcast episodes. Again, we're going to get into a regular recording schedule again here now that I've unearthed my podcasting equipment and my microphone, and I've got a new shiny space to record this podcast in. But I will come back and wrap up the show after these interviews and POV video, and I will talk to you soon. So I am here outside of DarKoaster with Busch Gardens Williamsburg Park President Kevin Lemke. Kevin, welcome to the Coaster101 podcast. Thanks for having us here today.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
So let's address the obvious elephant in the room. There used to be a ride here.
Yes.
How do you feel that DarKoaster kind of is the spiritual successor, if you will, to the Curse of Dark Castle?
Yeah. No, I think it's the next phase of that story, and it's in the castle, all right. So very recognizable. Such a great part of Oktoberfest here. Our members, love the building. It's iconic, and now to have an attraction back in there that really kind of pays homage to that story, but then builds upon it in a whole new way. So really just a great fit on a lot of rich history there.
Absolutely. And this coaster, I mean, as you look around the coasters at Busch Gardens, I believe this is the park's 10th coaster.
Yes.
And it is the perfect, I want to say, like gap coaster, between, something like Grover and something like Invader, but before you get to over there at Verbolten.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit to what this coaster means kind of for the family dynamic and those coaster enthusiasts in training?
Yeah, absolutely. 48-inch height requirement. So, definitely have some little ones on there, which is great. But I think it's your point. It's a perfect blend. It still has high thrill, a lot of excitement to it. 4 launches. The launches are, a lot stronger than people I think are expecting, which is exciting. But yeah, not quite to the level of, what you would see on Verbolten or some of our other launch coasters. So fits right in the portfolio well. And, we put a lot of time and thought into that of how does the overall mix of coasters and demographics work. And this is really a natural for us. Right. And I know you might not be the right person to ask this, but, how long has a coaster like DarKoaster been in the works? It's been a whirlwind of new attractions here at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, but how long has it went from Dark Castle to Frostbite to now DarKoaster? Yeah.
How long has this been in the works?
Yeah. So ever since Dark Castle was retired in 2017, there was a desire to get an attraction back in the building, and served as some great Howl-O-Scream mazes over a couple years. Santa's Village lived in here, so still active at times, but we knew we wanted something that could really be year-round and get an attraction back in there. So been in talks for a while, but development-wise, at least a couple years.
Okay, and then obviously as we look around the park, we're right in the middle of the Food and Wine Festival.
Yeah.
And this kind of it's a continuation earlier question, but how does DarKoaster complement everything else you guys have going on at the park in 2023?
Yeah, there's just so much going on no matter when you visit. There's literally always an event going on, no matter what weekend you come. But Food and Wine, also a great family atmosphere. And then with the new attraction, really that's kind of the ultimate for a theme park, right? You have your events that are bringing people out each weekend, but then of course everyone loves to debut a new attraction. So you combine all of those things. When I think forward to Howl-O-Scream and having DarKoaster, and even during our Christmas Town event, an indoor coaster gives us so much more flexibility in terms of weather. So really just a very dynamic addition to the park that gives us a lot of flexibility that maybe a traditional outdoor coaster doesn't.
Perfect. And then the last couple of questions I got. You've ridden DarKoaster presumably a couple of times.
Yes.
Point. Do you have a preference, front seat or back seat?
It's funny. Just talking with the engineers about this. I think the middle to back is probably the best. Allows you to take it in a little bit more, where the front, of course, is great. No one in front of you. Everyone loves the front seat on a coaster. But in a way, just from the visual, sometimes being in the back and kind of having a broader perspective, there's some upside to that too. So really not a bad seat. Just such a cool ride, so unique and very repeatable. So just can't wait to get people on it.
That was as close to a non-answer as I've ever heard, but I love it. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us on the Coaster 101 podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Next up, I'm here with Susie Chile. And Susie, can you remind me of your title one more time?
Yes, I'm the Vice President of Design and Engineering for Busch Gardens Williamsburg and Water Country USA.
Awesome. And we are standing outside of DarKoaster right now. And my first question for you, obviously, we've had pass holder previews, and now we're here at Media Day. What does it mean to you to finally get this coaster open to the public?
I couldn't be more thrilled. Part of it is just because it's been a long road. It's probably a 2-year process for me from getting assigned to start construction documents, working with the ride manufacturer, getting permits, starting to build things, install it, and everything else, to opening day. But it's so rewarding for us to see the guests like you guys so excited to see it open, and it kind of makes it all worthwhile.
I love it. And you mentioned the construction documents and everything. I want to address the elephant in the room. We've got a pre-existing box here that was an attraction here for a number of years, and then it was a Halloween haunt maze and Howl-O-Scream maze. What was it like building a coaster in a box?
It was different, for sure. I mean, we definitely knew we wanted to have a ride that was not weather dependent, right? And since we had Dark Castle, it just made sense to get another ride in here at some point. You are confined by the space that you're provided, though. So it's not like an open field like Pantheon was. So here we go. We had this. And at the time when we were starting our documents, there were still 2 mazes in there. And so we had to do a 3D survey, which I was unfamiliar with at the time. But the company that we hired, they put these special points in there. They used some lasers and were able to look at the interior of the building. And it's not just the interior structure, because we do have documents that showed that, but the ductwork that was added, some other modifications, the fire alarm devices, and so there's a lot that was added that you want to make sure when you put the new track in, you're not going to hit it.
Right.
So yeah, so that was kind of unique.
The outer structure, though, still mostly the same.
The outer structure is still mostly the same, for sure.
Wow.
Yes.
And so, obviously, Curse of Dark Castle was here for a number of years. How do you feel that DarKoaster is kind of a spiritual successor of sorts to
It really is, and it's funny because we had talked about possibly doing something different, but our fan base is very strong, and they were very loyal to Dark Castle, so it just seemed to make sense to continue the story.
Okay, and the last couple of years, the park has had a really strong roller coaster specific relationship with Intamin. What was it like working with them on 2 very, very different coaster projects? Yeah,
they're a great partner. Pantheon, you are exactly right. Pantheon was high thrill, totally different ride. We were looking at, the tallest and the fastest and that kind of thing. This is definitely more family ride.
It is.
The ride vehicle is a snowmobile. It's a straddle coaster, which is so different, but very good company. Very good partner, very reliable partner. So we definitely have really enjoyed working with them on this.
And I know this is not the first straddle coaster in the SeaWorld Busch Gardens family. So was it the feedback from Wavebreaker, the rescue coaster, that kind of led Busch Gardens Williamsburg down the line of, hey, we could do this here in Williamsburg,
we could give it, not necessarily jet skis, but they can be snowmobiles. Was it kind of that feedback that led to this? It's like, hey, it worked here. It could definitely work in Williamsburg as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know that it was the first thing we thought about, but when we started looking at options, Wave Breaker's obviously a very popular ride. It opened, 5-6 years ago maybe?
Sure.
And when we started thinking about, we could make it a snowmobile. Obviously, a jet ski isn't going to work here. But somebody had thought about that, and we started thinking about how we could wind the story around that, and I think it's really worked out well.
Awesome. And presumably you've written this countless times at this point.
I think 15 times today.
15 times today.
Which is, I think, my upper limit now.
Do you have a favorite seat on the train? Front, back, middle, second row, fourth row? Do you have a...
I like the back.
Okay.
I do.
Just kind of whips you around a little bit?
I guess. I'm not sure why, but it just seems like you can see everything from the best vantage point. So I just really like the back.
I love it.
I've heard other people say other things, so it's personal preference.
I think I've asked Kevin and then Jeff the same question. I've gotten 3 different answers.
Have you? Okay,
yeah, so
there you go.
It's great. And then obviously DarKoaster opens. By the time this airs, DarKoaster will be open. But what do you hope, Busch Gardens guests, when they finally get to experience this, what do you hope the past members and both, past members and day ticket holders, what do you hope they take away from DarKoaster and the effort that went into it?
Well, I hope that they agree with us that, it just adds to the portfolio of the park. We have 10 coasters now. So we have high thrill coasters. We have Loch Ness Monster, which is an old favorite. We have Invader, which was our wooden coaster that we added, I think, in 2017. And so I think this is a wonderful family ride. It's indoors, so I think in the summer, whenever it's really hot out, it'll be nice because they do keep the air conditioning pretty cold in here.
Yes.
But I think the guests are just going to think we're very balanced in our offerings, and hopefully they just love it as much as we do.
I know I said that was my last question, but you caused me to think of something else. Can you talk a little bit about how this fills that kind of family coaster gap? Obviously, Busch Gardens Williamsburg has Grover's Alpine Express. They have Invader. But then there's a pretty significant step up.
Yes.
How does this kind of fill that gap, between Grover, Invader, and then a coaster like Bolt or Loch Ness Monster?
Yeah, I think you've answered it. I think it actually does fill the gap because you're right. After Invader, there's some of our little ones that probably it's going to be a while before they get on Griffin. So I think this one will be a nice coaster to fill that gap so that they can ride it and still wait a couple more years for Griffin. You know what I mean?
I love it.
Yeah.
Susie, thanks for joining us on the Coaster101 podcast.
Okay, thanks for having me.
And now I am joined by SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment's Vice President of Attraction Design and Development. Jeff, did I get that title right?
You got it.
All right, perfect. Jeff Hornick, actually my first ever interview for Coaster101.com way back in the day when he was at Busch Gardens Tampa, but he is joining us on the Coaster101 podcast. Jeff, thanks for chatting with me today.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for being here.
So, DarKoaster obviously it's been in development for a while. What does it mean to you to finally get this attraction open to the public and have everybody get to experience it today?
Like you said, this has been a long time coming. We've known that this is a fantastic asset in the former building for the Curse of Dark Castle, and we really had to find the right type of attraction to fit that space. And we're really excited to be here today to start getting our media on and getting their reactions. We've had pass holder previews over the last week or so, and one of the best parts about my job is being able to see everyone enjoy the rides and attractions that we work on so carefully, and I'd say that this one really delivers. This is a very fun, thrilling attraction. It fits that family thrill category very well with the 48-inch height restrictions, so it's a great addition to this already stellar lineup of attractions here at the park. This is also the 10th roller coaster now at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, and it definitely delivers. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I've been on it 50 plus times, and I still have a smile on my face when I get off the ride because it is just a really fun ride.
Right. And in your title, design and development, one of those words obviously is development. And I talked to Kevin, and you mentioned after the closing of Curse of Dark Castle, this was obviously a Hollow Scream maze for a couple of years, different iterations. How long has a coaster like Dark Coaster been in development?
So we've been developing this attraction for a number of years. We've looked at a number of different types of ride gear, actually, for this particular location, and working through the best ways to have a second chapter of that Dark Castle story. And we were really excited to partner with Intamin in the development of this attraction. It is really incredible how much ride we have fit into this small footprint. We've got about 1,400 feet of track, but you travel over 2,400 feet of track as you're going through that ride course. And as you're going through the experience, it just keeps going.
Yes.
There are certain times where I kind of forget what part of the ride I'm on because the elements that we've laid out in there are just, it's a lot of fun. It's a great mix of tight turns and little pops of airtime, and it's a very, very smooth experience, and it really leaves you wanting more.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Intamin. Obviously, the park's 9th roller coaster was Pantheon, which is an Intamin creation. What's it been like working with Intamin the last couple of years to complete two entirely different coaster experiences?
Yeah, we've been partnering with Intamin on attractions across our portfolio. We have a number of other Intamin products that are going to be opening here in the next few weeks and months at some of our sister parks. So we're very eager to open those up to the world. Intamin is a great partner for us to work with. They've got some very compelling products. The basis of Dark Coaster, which is on a straddle system, right? So this is North America's first all-indoor straddle coaster. That developed, we actually developed that in partnership with Intamin at our SeaWorld San Antonio Park at the Wavebreaker experience. So if anybody's been on that, very similar profile. And these are snowmobiles versus the wave runners that are over there, but taking that straddle prone position and putting that inside a building in the darkness and being able to have the fast track switches that allow you to go through the same ride course twice creates a very robust and thrilling experience from start to finish. And it is action-packed all the way through.
Okay. And as you were kind of ideating and concepting this ride, and you decided, I know you're not going to tell me the other types of attractions that were, concepted for the space. How was the decision made to kind of go with the track switches and, traversing the track twice as opposed to, a more traditional, single cycle around the coaster?
If you look at the amount of track that we've squeezed into that building, there is hardly a square foot of open space in there. So we know we wanted to deliver on a length of time and a duration of that ride, and you just quite frankly fit enough track in there to deliver on the robust experience that we were looking for. We had been working with Intamin on their fast track switch technology on Pantheon, and being able to implement that here felt like the right opportunity for us. And when you're on the ride experience itself, even though you're going through that ride course twice, you really don't realize it because of how expertly laid out the choreography is within that space, with the left turn, right turn, and the vertical nature. It really feels like the second time around is completely different than the first time.
Yes, and I mean it's all in the dark, which adds even more to that kind of that speed and kind of the sense of uncertainty for sure. It is very much a family coaster, and in a park like Busch Gardens Williamsburg, you've got Grover's Alpine Express, you've got Invader, you've got to a certain extent for Bolton. How does, when creating a new coaster, how was the decision made to kind of go with more of a family-facing product?
Yeah, Busch Gardens is a wide-ranging demographic that we target here. Everything from the thrill seekers to new families and everything in between. And looking at the current portfolio offerings that we have here, we knew we had an opportunity to improve upon that family thrill target demographic. And as we mentioned, we've got those stepping stone coasters already here, but being able to add this to our portfolio to help supplement Invader and Tempesto and those attractions, it really just makes an even more robust experience for our guests. And it's something that we know they've been looking for.
Yes.
And it really delivers not only for the young kids, maybe 6 or 7 year olds can ride this, so it's a lot of fun for them, but it's still a fun experience for even the thrill seekers out there. It's a great place to cool off, especially on a summer day. The fact that this is indoors, we're really excited about the opportunity for guests to enjoy that during the summertime, but even the wintertime as well. This is going to be a fantastic year-round attraction that guests can experience.
Yeah. And speaking kind of more broadly to the SeaWorld, Busch Gardens portfolio in general, there's been a lot of focus in recent years on capital editions of roller coasters. Can you talk a little bit, maybe, there have been obviously some Screamin' Swings added, some roller coasters, both thrilling and, more family focused. Can you talk a little bit kind of like Busch Gardens and SeaWorld's what's motivations really for kind of focusing on a more thrilling product in the past couple of years?
Yeah, so at our parks, we're constantly have our finger on the pulse for what our guests are experiencing in the parks, both good and bad. And that's on attractions, that's F&B, retail, and something that we really strive for is being able to pivot and being very flexible with not only our offerings in the park, but also the way we develop new attractions. We are very fast-paced on the new attraction development at our company. So when we're looking at new attractions, we definitely take a hard look at what the current offering is, whether those are over-delivering, under-delivering. There may be circumstances where we would remove a certain attraction to bring something new to the parks, and our focus has been we have delivered a lot of thrilling attractions, a lot of roller coaster based attractions recently, but on the other side, we are also investing in our animal habitats, and our conservation efforts. So you may have seen, like at SeaWorld Orlando, we've renovated a few of our zoological facilities and upgraded our animal rescue center. And those offerings are really important because not everybody's a coaster fan. Even though we're speaking to Coaster101, we recognize that not everybody's out there. They've got the grandparents and the young kids, so we definitely want to make sure that is an experience that caters to all demographics. So you'll see in our parks moving forward that we'll be continued to invest in these thrilling attractions, but also new types of experiences that you haven't seen before, or that you may have seen in the market that you've been eager to bring to our parks. Those will be coming to us in the near future.
I like that effective, nondescript tease you just gave us there. That's great. And then the last question: you've ridden this, you said upwards of 50 times at this point. Do you have a preference, front or back of the train?
On the dark coaster, my favorite seat's probably right in the middle.
Okay.
This ride, even though it's 36 miles per hour, doesn't sound very fast, but in the dark it is really fast, and you whip by a number of show scenes throughout the ride, and there are elements on that the front riders get a little bit different experience than the back riders, but in the middle I feel is like that sweet spot where you've got all of those different elements hitting at the right time. So it's fun, it's repeatable, it's something that it's a great experience. It's easy to talk about, but being able to experience it and see it in person is really important. So we're really excited to have this grand opening on May 19th, and really eager to have everybody out come to Busch Gardens to check it out.
Awesome. Jeff, thank you for joining us on the Coaster101 podcast.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'm here with one half of the Corkscrew Convos podcast, Chris, who has braved the storm with me. We've just experienced Dark Coaster. Chris, you're not a full-blown podcast guest, but I will say welcome to the Coaster101 podcast for the first time.
Ahoy! I don't know what other salutation I should use, but you're right. We braved the storm. We went into Dark Castle. We saw a Dark Coaster. We saw King Ludwig. I think we escaped his grasp once again, thankfully. But that was a really good time. I mean, 4 launches. This is North America's first all-indoor straddle coaster. All those superlatives. Bottom line, Andrew, I'm telling you, this is a great ride. You were on my podcast just a couple minutes ago. You told me about your experiences here, and I mean, it's incredible. It's a great addition. The 10th coaster at Busch Gardens Williamsburg.
Yes, and through the magic of podcasting, I don't know when your show is going to release. This might come out next Sunday or Monday or Tuesday or whenever I feel like it. So I was just on yours, you're just on mine, but it's all through the magic of podcasting. We're making it happen.
It's magic. It's simple. It's that simple.
What was your favorite part of Dark Coaster?
Really, for me, I, of course, had a special place in my heart for Curse of Dark Castle. And to get back into this building, to get back into this story with a new story to be told, I think that was very special for me. Because they have some new elements in the queue. It's a different story. This isn't you going around with King Ludwig's mom in like Curse of Dark Castle. That was great in its own time, but that ship has sailed. And now there's another ship in the port, and that ship's name is Dark Coaster. So here we are, we're on this ship, there's a big storm. We braved it, by the way, # brave the storm. And it was a good time.
It was. And we, these trains, you mentioned North America's first straddle coaster.
Yeah.
Chris, I'm not gonna blow up your spot here, but like me, you're a little bit of a rider of size.
Yeah.
I thought the trains were, fairly roomy. What'd you think?
Yeah, I didn't know what I was gonna expect with a straddle coaster, because of course there were coasters like motorbike coasters, Hagrid's Magical Creatures, Motorbike Adventure, all these different things, but this was something that I wasn't terribly familiar with, where you're sitting on a sort of a regular chair, but then your legs go down a different cave in the train. Well, I guess it's an ice bird thing.
Snowmobile.
Snowbird, yeah.
Yes.
See, I just watched The Shining, so to have this terminology in my head for the first time, it's really funny how things work out with that way.
This is true.
Yeah, but you pull down the lap bar, it's only a lap bar, of course, and then you check it, you're off on your way, 4 launches, it's a good time.
It is. And what do you think about the kind of filling that family coaster gap here at Busch Gardens Williamsburg?
You say gap, I say bridge. I think this is an incredible bridge coaster. On my podcast, you said, yes, it's great for the kids that have graduated from Grover's
Alpine Express.
Grover, not the other word. Grover's Alpine Express. Please cut that if you would.
Nope, not cutting it.
For Grover's Alpine Express, they've graduated from it. They're ready for a little something more, but they're not necessarily ready for something like Invader or even Alpengeist when you get down to it. So this is a coaster that sort of bridges that gap, where if you have some little ones with you that are ready for more of an adventure, they're ready to # brave the storm, this is an opportunity for them to do that. And it's in a themed environment, an air-conditioned queue for the most part. I don't know what else you could want.
That's a good point. All right, and did you ride in the front and the back? Do you have a favorite seat?
I just did the back, and for me, that was enough.
It's fair.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think I would say the back, then the middle. I mean, the front row was blocked off for the media because they were filming, but
yeah.
I think the back and the middle, I think they're the way to go here.
Yeah, I mean, with 4 launches, you get 2 times to enjoy the layout of the coaster, so you really get a good handle on the coaster element of it, even though the story itself may change when you're going through it. But that was a lot of fun, and I think it's going to be a re-rideable ride when you go either the back row, maybe the front row, the middle. I think you're going to have a good ride no matter what row you're in.
And Chris, you so graciously threw a plug my way on your podcast, so I'm going to let you go ahead and throw yourself a plug on our podcast.
Oh, yes.
Where can the folks find you?
This is Corkscrew Convos, where, we're a podcast. We're on the Twitter, the Instagram, the Mastodon. I think I posted twice on Mastodon when I was afraid that Twitter was going to go away, and it still might. We're going to have to see what happens there. But we're Corkscrew Convos. It's another theme park podcast. We really, of course, respect what Coaster101 does, and Andrew Stillwell, the whole team over there. There's 101 reasons to listen to Coaster101. But if I may, the 102nd reason is to go listen to Corkscrew Convos. And I'm not sure if that was a coherent thought right there, but I think that was a good way to leave it.
I love it. Chris, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, so we are here at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. It is Dark Coaster Media Day. We're getting ready to ride for the 3rd time right here in the middle. We're just going to get a little reaction to it. We're going to see what happens here.
Do you have what it takes to brave the storm? Let's find out.
Here we go. It's super dark in here. Going through the first launch track. Oh God, here we go.
And we're back. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Coaster 101 podcast. Thank you for braving the storm of not only a podcast hiatus, but also, dealing with some interviews and listening to some ASMR and some on-ride audio. The Coaster 101 podcast is coming back. But if you have any other questions or want to read about DarKoaster or any other roller coaster that the Coaster 101 team has visited recently. I know we've covered a bunch of different ride openings in the past couple of weeks. Head over to Coaster101.com if you prefer your content to be in the written word. There's also some great pictures taken. We're also on all forms of social media. We are at Coaster101, so Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Wherever you can find social media, we are probably there at Coaster101. If you're listening, make sure you're also liking, rating, reviewing, subscribing, and, leaving us those 5-star reviews on Spotify or those written reviews on Apple Podcast. It helps people find the show, and as we emerge out of this brief hiatus, hopefully more people will find us as the 2023 season gets well underway. Thanks, as always, to JM Music Design for our theme music, and we will talk to y'all again soon. See ya.